Okay, in this video we're going to look at something called polymorphic functions. I'm going to work with examples to illustrate the points. Polymorphic, the example in the lecture notes, basically says the function length can operate on lists of strings, lists of integers, lists of Boolean. It will still return the list or the length, sorry, of that particular list. And that's why it's called polymorphic in this context. It allows you to operate on a number of different types, and it's happy to do so. It's easier, you can read the notes, but it's easier just to illustrate it. Look at this example here. I'm going to run length and I'm going to give it an integer and it returns 4. That's nice and straightforward. Obviously, if I add a few more items, it gives me the count or the length of that particular list. If I change this to individual characters, let me just do this for speed. Again, it's got 4 items in there. Let's see what happens if we work out the length and we pop in some tuples. They are number tuples, say, for sake of argument, 5. And you notice that it gives you the length of it. So it's quite happy with different types inside this list. That makes it polymorphic. It can deal with different data types. And that's a very useful. This is a built-in function for Prelude. Oh, yes, and there's one I didn't quite do, and that this relates to an earlier point. How is it giving me a length of that? Remember the concept. A string is a list of characters. And this is something you will encounter in some languages, and in other languages you have to make the relationship more explicit. So again, the length is very, very useful. Now these what are called list functions, all of them are polymorphic. So we're going to play through some more. Okay, let's wrap this one by just having a look at some simple examples. Okay, so we've looked at length. There's one here which allows us, let's have a look at what this does. There's a list, 5, 7, 2. What does that do? It's a simple way of adding an element to the front of a list by using the number followed by a colon. You can combine lists together by the double plus sign. So we can say speech mark double plus well, turns it into a much larger character array. I've deliberately put a get thing in there. Let's just do it with 2 lists. Yes, it's the type hasn't been specified. So if I do 1, 2, 3, let's see what happens if I do the double plus sign with this and I add in 4, 3, 2. And you can see it concatenates those 2 together and draws them together. So you have some very, very simple and clear operators. We have another one. Let's move on to this one here. This one allows us to return an element at a particular location. So here is an indexing. So if I take list by using double exclamation mark and put in the number 2, it is returning the index of the given position num value at that position. Now notice I've put 2 in. So if I were counting from 1, 1, 2, it would be 3. Clearly is 0 index, 0, 1, 2. Keep that in mind when you look at this particular one. There's another one, a very, very simple one, which tests if a list is empty. That's an empty list. I put a value in there. It's no longer empty. It's quite straightforward. You might think that's almost elementary. Why do you even need that? So we have a whole range of different functions. Notice that these functions are polymorphic. They can deal with many different data types. Here we're doing numbers. Here, let's have a look. Let's just replace this one with, well, let's try this. You put a bunch of characters in. With me a second. And one. And then we'll just see what we get. E, L. What happens with that one? It returns L because that is index 0, 1, 2. That's interesting. Now we're told a string is a list of characters, which is also an array. So if I just say hello and then do that, it does the same thing. It treats that string as an array of characters or a list of characters and returns the value at that. So you can see it working with these list functions, working with a whole range of different data types. It's called polymorphism, and it gives it an enormous amount of power.